apparently out. A couple of division rivals are in, Adam. What's the latest?
Well, Hannah, this is a situation where it's a hard deal to make because any team that is acquiring Brandon Aiyuk has to satisfy the 49ers asking price and Brandon Aiyuk's asking price for a new contract. If he doesn't get what he wants, he can say no to a contract, and there's not going to be a team that wants to trade for Brandon Aiyuk when it has to give up as many assets as it does without having him under contract long term, not at this stage right now. And so that leaves both sides in a tough spot because there are teams out there that are willing to compensate the 49ers to their satisfaction, but that's not where Brandon Aiyuk would like to go. And there are teams that are willing to make Brandon Aiyuk happy, but it's not what the 49ers are getting back in return that would make them happy. So I think when you step back and assess the situation, a lot of people around the league believe that the 49ers are not going to be in any rush here to make a move, despite the fact that everybody's waiting for a breathless update, waiting to see when and if Brandon Aiyuk will be traded. He might be, and he might be soon, but they are not rushing into anything right now. They're going to take their time, be deliberate, and see what's out there before they make any move at all, because they do know that they would be moving on from a very good wide receiver. And without an obvious wide receiver to replace him, what's the rush to go make that move right now?
That makes total sense and really falls in line with the way they've done business. But just for fun, let's say if he were traded to the Steelers or the Browns, a couple of teams reportedly interested, what's the best fit?
All right, so first of all, I want to speak on behalf of literally every person who follows football and probably Adam Schefter, the 11 million or so on Twitter. We really want this to get done one way or the other because we have been waiting with bated breath for what feels like a month, but it's actually been like 3 or 4 days. That being said, if the two destinations that are in play and will remain in play are Cleveland or Pittsburgh, I think the better destination for Brandon Aiyuk is the Browns, because ostensibly this team is going to give him what he wants, right, which is a contract that is near the top of the wide receiver market. And I would imagine that the 49ers are going to want something in terms of a player in return. He could go to Cleveland and become the #1 wide receiver. And believe it or not, Hannah, as crazy as it is to say, given how poor Deshaun Watson has been at times for the Cleveland Browns under center in his 2 years with the team, I think it's a more stable quarterback situation in Cleveland than it is in Pittsburgh, where I'm not sure who the starting quarterback is going to be in week 1, but I think Russell Wilson and Justin Fields will start games this season. I think the Browns have more Super Bowl equity than the Steelers do, so if Brandon Aiyuk wants to go to a place that more mirrors what he has right now, playing for a team that has been to 2 Super Bowls in 5 seasons, I believe the Cleveland Browns are a superior option to the Pittsburgh Steelers to satisfy those needs.
Field, it's interesting from a Brandon Aiyuk standpoint. I actually like the Steelers from this point of view. Arthur Smith did a great job with Ryan Tannehill when they were at Tennessee. Play action, mobile quarterback, can get the ball down the field. And I think that plays actually to Justin Fields and Russell Wilson's strength. And when you look at all these other complementary parts that the Steelers have, from obviously George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, 2 productive backs, and sort of a reinvigorated offensive line, what Brandon Aiyuk can do so well that Pittsburgh doesn't have is somebody that could get down the field and stretch a defense. So I actually like the fit for Brandon Aiyuk with the Steelers. Now, as it relates to what the 49ers could get back, I don't know if the Steelers would give up on Roman Wilson, Michigan's 3rd-round pick last year. So to me, if I'm San Francisco, I agree with Adam. I'm patient, and I want to make sure that I get back a meaningful player and a meaningful draft choice, given Brandon Aiyuk's ability, and he's only 26 years old.
And, Mike, I think that's the problem right now. The Steelers aren't going to be giving up George Pickens in a trade. They just drafted Roman Wilson, and I think people don't expect that they'll give up Roman Wilson either. So if you're not trading George Pickens and you're not trading Roman Wilson, who else there would placate the Niners and make it such that they would be comfortable enough to go trade Brandon Aiyuk right now? Now, they could go and take some of that draft capital and potentially look at other receivers across the league, see who's available, see who would fit into their offense. But it is not an ideal situation. And that is why I believe they're going to sit back here, take their time, not rush into anything until they feel like they are making a move that is acceptable and helpful for this franchise. This is a franchise, again, that views itself as a viable Super Bowl contender. You're not going to make a move to weaken yourself to make a wide receiver happy in training camp because he wants to be moved. They're going to do something that makes sense for them, not necessarily the player.
They better make Adam Schefter happy, though, Hannah.
Yeah,
he's getting 9,000 tweets a minute asking him, when is Aiyuk going to be traded?
Oh, my God. What if Amari Cooper was thrown in the mix? Just saying. Brock Purdy averaged 8.6 air yards per attempt when Aiyuk was on the field. Look at this. It drops to 3.5 yards to 5.1 when Ayuk's not in the game. All right, so how about Christian McCaffrey? Actually, his yards per rush fell off by over half a yard without Aiyuk. Even Deebo Samuel, his touchdown percentage fell by 5 percentage points when Aiyuk is out of the game. Here is Kyle Shanahan on the uncertainty surrounding his star receiver.
I mean, Brandon's a great player, so it's real hard to be better when you lose a great player. So we got to look into anything. We got to understand the situation we're in, what that looks like. And that does take time. So hopefully it'll all work out best for him and best for us in the long run. You're always disappointed when you can't keep a hold of all your players or it's not going exactly right. I mean, I don't like losing anybody. So that's why I'm hoping it does work out here. But right now we don't have that solved yet. So I hope it does.
All right, Mike, you're the front office guy. What kind of conversations do you imagine are going on right now in San Francisco?
Hannah, I'm bringing Brandon Aiyuk and his agents in, and you could fill in the blank in terms of the verb beg, cajole, whatever it takes. But what I would be saying to Brandon Aiyuk is like, look, just a couple months ago, we were winning in overtime in the Super Bowl. And look, you're underpaid at $14 million a year. Maybe we could bump it up to 19 or 20 million and also agree not to franchise you. So give us one more year at admittedly below market prices, Hannah, but have a meaningful chance to win a championship, then go out and crush it, knowing that Jamar Chase will likely get done in Cincinnati, knowing that CeeDee Lamb likely will get done in Dallas. You will go out and reset the market at whatever that number is, $37, $38 million a year. So take care of your legacy now, and then go take care of your economics in a few more months. And I would work really hard to try to keep everybody together for one more year, knowing that we got to deal with Brock Purdy's contract in 2025.
Okay, let me play a hypothetical here. Let's say that Mike Tannenbaum is general manager right now of an NFL team. And let's say that Brandon Aiyuk plays for his team and Brandon Aiyuk demands a new contract and a trade, and he's the GM of that team that can compete for the Super Bowl. Mike, if you went out and you shopped Brandon Aiyuk like he requested, and you found places that were interested in him and willing to pay him, multiple places, and he didn't want to go there, would you feel like you did your job by essentially saying to the player, okay, you wanted a trade? We got you a trade. You wanted a contract? We got you a contract. We can't exactly come up with the absolute perfect situation for you. That's not exactly how it works. Everybody is going to be sacrificing something here. The 49ers would like to hold on to Brandon Aiyuk, but they went out and they found interested teams. New England was interested in Brandon Aiyuk, but again, it was tough to get to the contract spot that he wanted. Cleveland has been interested in Brandon Aiyuk, but he has been more interested, seemingly, in going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So how many spots, Mike, can the 49ers find before they actually say, look, we need something here too? We're not just going to make the player entirely happy. We have to be happy here too. He wanted a trade, they found him a trade. He wanted a new contract, they found him new contracts. So far, it's not enough.
So context is everything, and that's when you bring in the player, the agent, and say, hey, we're on the same side of the table. If you want to get paid, here's what we're going to need. And, you know, we've seen the name, as Field alluded to, someone like Amari Cooper, maybe he comes back along with some other package. So when you tell a player and an agent that we're operating in good faith and we try to meet you more than halfway and we can't get a deal done, if I'm John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, I'm shifting to plan B, which is let's put a Band-Aid on it. Look, we're never going to get to where you are, where you want a long-term deal. Maybe we put a little bit more money into this year. We agree not to franchise you, and let's go win a championship. So if all those things happen, Adam, which I'm sure they did if you're saying they did, that would actually give the 49ers the leverage to say, hey, let's go to plan B. You're going to be here for a year, so let's work hard at coming up with a solution we can both live with.
Yeah, well, Mike, I think Brandon Aiyuk would crush it as a free agent in March. I'd be very, very, very surprised if he and his agency agreed to sort of a Band-Aid deal to keep him around in San Francisco for this year that included a bit more money. But let's be clear, as Adam has said, the 49ers are in no rush to trade this player. That could eventually turn from they're in no rush to they don't plan to trade Brandon Aiyuk. And I think maybe door C that hasn't been discussed as much, Hannah, is that the 49ers can hang tight with Brandon Aiyuk for this season specifically. As of this very moment, it is, August 8th or something like that, August 7th. I'm not great with dates and time, apparently. The 49ers have more cap space available than anybody in the entire NFL. They would probably reduce the cap charge for Brandon Aiyuk if they got a long-term deal done. The only problem, if you want to call it one, with extending Brandon Aiyuk is that next year the bill comes due for Brock Purdy, and they're going to have to make difficult decisions in San Francisco. So while it may seem unlikely given this twists and turns and paths, and every time I look up there's a new Adam Schefter tweet notification about Brandon Aiyuk that I just want the finality to be here, it might be that Brandon Aiyuk sticks around in San Francisco after all, which is a plausible thing to do. They would have to work on mending the relationship, but
that's the thing. How far does it go to where they can't walk it back?
Well, my interpretation of what Adam just said is Brandon Aiyuk needs to make a choice. Ultimately, the ball is in his court, not the 49ers, not the Browns, not the Steelers, not the Patriots anymore. Brandon Aiyuk controls when the Brandon Aiyuk story comes to an end.